let's begin to wind down and look at our liturgy for tonight. This is going to be a little bit longer. I don't think I'm going to be able to finish this. I'm just going to whet your appetite, and the person who sent in the question is just going to have to wait for 2 weeks to see the full answer. But let me whet your appetite and tell you where we're going to go. The liturgy is normally just a reading from passages out of the Hebrew part of your Bible and then the Greek part of your Bible, Old and New Testaments respectively. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment on the words new covenant and highlight the word new in the Hebrew rendering as well as the Greek. So we're going to read from Jeremiah 31:31 next week. I won't read it this week. I'm just going to tell you what we're going to be reading, but we're not going to look at it tonight. We'll read from Jeremiah 31:31 out of the Hebrew. We'll read then some English translations. We'll then turn to the Hebrew word chadashah, which is found in this passage, and highlight some of the nuances related to that. Next, what we'll do is we'll pull up this passage out of the Septuagint and look at an English translation of the Septuagint, which is the Greek rendering or Greek translation of the Hebrew. We'll look at an English translation, we'll look at the Hebrew again, and we'll also pull the Greek itself of Jeremiah 31:31 from the Septuagint. And then from that, we'll highlight some comparisons and contrasts. We'll turn to Hebrews chapter 8, which is the longest single running quote from the Old Testament into the New Testament, and it just so happens to be the Jeremiah 31 passage. And so from there, we'll look at Hebrews 8:8, which is just Jeremiah 31:31. We'll look at that in the we'll look at that in the Greek next week's liturgy, and then we'll look at English as well. And then from there, we're going to center in on one Greek word, which is the counterpart to the Hebrew word chadashah. It's the word kainos. We'll look at that and see why that's important for our study. And then lastly, as we start to wind down in the liturgy, we'll pull in Hebrews 12:24, which actually uses another word for new other than the one that we would expect in the Greek. And from that passage, we'll have to highlight the particular Greek word neos, or neos if you want to say, and look at the nuances to that word. And then lastly, we'll see that there is a Hebrew counterpart, as we're kind of coming full circle, to this word neos in the Hebrew. If we kind of do reverse translation from, even though the book of Hebrews was not written in Hebrew in our Bibles, at least not authoritatively, we can do reverse translation by using words from the Septuagint and linking them up with Hebrew counterparts and finding certain words in those passages that would have been used. So we'll do that using a passage out of the book of Exodus, and highlight, what this word meant in the Hebrew, right? The equivalent from there. And then lastly, if we have time, we'll take that passage out of Jeremiah, out of Hebrews, where it talks about the new covenant, and we'll look at one commentator's perspective on it, namely Tim Hegg. If we have time to look at that, you can see the highlight on my page right now. And that will lead us finally to a last verse coming full circle in the book of Colossians, which actually uses both of the Greek words for new, neos and kainos, uses both of them in one verse, and that'll draw the liturgy portion to a close when we do this next week. But that'll whet your appetite. That's what we're going to look at next week when the time comes. And when I put this final video together, I might just put the two sections together and not make it week 1, week 2. I'll just put it together as one week. But that'll do it for our liturgy for tonight. So stay tuned for that next week as we unpack that particular study.